Alright boys, we are looking at a Masterwork Colossus. This is about 50 hours into Anthem. And let me go ahead and just say this. Yes, there's other javelins out there that have a little more flash, but every team needs a thick boy. And today I'm going to show you how to be a professional thick boy. So first, let me give you an idea of this build. This build is probably not the best build in terms of DPS. No, this build is purely for you to aggro your enemies, take as much damage as you can, while simultaneously healing yourself and freezing all of your enemies around you. Yes, we will be freezing enemies with one of our abilities. Now, first and foremost, let's go over real quick what we're using in terms of our heavy assault launcher and our ordnance launcher. Our heavy assault launcher is called Best Defense. It's an upgraded siege artillery and also comes with a combo effect explosive. The beautiful thing about Best Defense though, it states that hitting an enemy with a rocket restores 35% armor, and you get this back every 14 seconds. So that is our heavy assault launcher, and it will keep you alive better than anything. Next up is our ordnance launcher. This is called Voltaic Dome. It's an upgraded shot coil. It shocks enemies in an area of effect. I've used this off and on, and it does some pretty decent damage, but the beautiful thing about Voltaic Dome is that enemies are frozen once hit. Now, frozen does a lot of things. Number one, it alleviates the pressure on all of your teammates. If you can freeze up all of those enemies, they are now stuck in place for you and your teammates to maneuver around, maybe get to their crit spots, their weak points, start dealing some massive amounts of damage while not getting smacked in the face constantly. Now, in order to really optimize Voltaic Dome, I use Battle Cry, which marks enemies and forces them to attack the Colossus. Now, this is not a Masterwork Battle Cry, this is just an epic. I'm hoping to eventually come across a Masterwork or Legendary support at some point that is a Battle Cry. Now, I will say this, Battle Cry, I wish it was a tad bit more effective. Like, I wish it had a larger radius, but other than that, it does what it's supposed to do, which is to make all of the ads look at you. And the moment they look at you and start concentrating on you is when you need to go in and start using your Voltaic Dome and start freezing them all up. Again, guys, this build is purely to keep your teammates alive. We digging it up out here, boys. Now, moving on to the components, because this is when things get both confusing and interesting. My first component here is called Stalwart's, I guess that's how I'm saying that right, Stalwart's Badge. It increases maximum ammo capacity by 35%, and right there in yellow it states that a shield break increases all ability damage by 40% for 5 seconds. Okay, so we've done some testing with this. Originally I thought, okay, a shield break, does that mean if I break the shield of certain enemies, you see that blue shield on a lot of different enemies, would I get the 40% buff in damage? No, what this actually means is your own shield on your Colossus. When that reaches like 0 health, like you see it there on the meter, and there's no more meat left on that shield, that is when you gain this ability, which does increase your ability damage by 40%, which is really nice. It's a good buff, but it's super situational, because a lot of times when you get a shield break, there is a momentary stun there, right? And you're only able to take advantage of this for 5 seconds. And on top of that, you're not really planning on your shield to break. I would say the only time that this is super advantageous is if like a boss melees you or something, breaks your shield, and you already have everything ready and primed to hit them with one of your abilities. Now, I did try a few things here. I tried actually opening up my shield and running into certain enemies. Like if you run into like a tank or an enforcer, it drops your shield, right? Like it stuns your shield and you fall to the ground. This unfortunately does not activate Stalwart's Badge, just letting you know. And by the way, guys, anything that says that it increases ability damage, that also transfers into your ultimate. So if you're timing to get the most out of your ultimate, you definitely want to be paying attention to those status effects. Now, next up, Reinforced Hull. This is another Masterwork component. It increases the magazine capacity of all weapons by 5%. Not really a huge difference there. The main thing here, though, is that it states when the effect is cleared, damage is increased by 20%. This can also occur every 10 seconds. Now, what this actually means is when negative effects that are on you, once they wear off, you then gain 20% increase in damage. This is a good buff, and is also something that you can time with certain abilities. So if you see something like you're on fire, maybe you're taking some acid damage, you'll see that status meter counting down, right? To let you know that that effect is about to be cleared. And once it clears, you then gain Reinforced Hull. Now moving on to our next component, Synchronized Frame. This increases heavy assault launcher damage by 5%. It also states that defeating an enemy increases E damage by 60% for 5 seconds. Now, that E ability that gets that increase in damage is our heavy assault launcher. Now, in order to actually gain that 60% extra damage, you have to get a kill with your ordnance launcher. For this situation, this component is really good, but I'm not utilizing it correctly because my ordnance launcher, which is voltaic, doesn't really do a lot of damage. Again, it's mainly good for doing some AoE damage and freezing all of your enemies. So if I really wanted to take advantage of Synchronized Frame, I would definitely want to use an ordnance launcher that has a lot more damage involved. Now, our next component is the one that I take advantage of the most. Catalytic Overdrive. It increases combo damage by 50%. It also states that detonating a combo increases ability damage by 40% for 20 seconds. So with this being said, your combo damage is doing 90% damage on top of the extra combo damage and AoE effect that comes from being a Colossus, because our combos from Colossus is that AoE damage to everything. Now, in order to actually get a combo off, you of course need to prime in some way, right? Or you have to have a teammate that's priming for you. Now, I like to do a lot of quick play, so I'm normally kind of like on my own, so I can't really depend on other people to prime for me all the time. So I actually have two methods of priming. Number one, Voltaic Dome is automatically a primer. And once I freeze up opponents, I can follow up immediately with my heavy assault launcher. But I also have a weapon here that also primes my enemies for me. This is the legendary version of Rounder's Blaze. It is the upgraded Hammerhead. It is the hardest hitter in the assault class. But the beautiful thing about this one is that it ignites the targets while on a hit streak. So after you hit the target with simply 5 shots, it ignites them, thus priming them and then allowing you to get combos off. And again, you want to constantly be getting combos off because that gives you more ultimate energy as well as giving you that AoE damage effect. Super beneficial overall. And considering we have a component here that's also increasing our combo damage by up to 90%, it makes sense why we want to get combos off as much as we can. Unfortunately, our heavy assault launcher does have a cooldown, and considering that is the only thing we have here that can detonate a combo, we would have to wait for that to come back every single time in order to take advantage of those combo numbers. But lo and behold, boys, we've got another component here that is just such a beautiful component. It's called Grand Entrance. It increases duration of support abilities by 50%. Now, I would say the support ability that actually benefits the most from that is the shield ability that reduces all incoming damage by 33%. This increases that support ability time frame by 50%. Really, really nice. But the main selling point to Grand Entrance is this text right here. Upon hard landing, it creates an explosion at the point of impact. By the way, guys, that explosion serves as a combo detonator. So let me walk you through the steps of what we're doing here, guys. First up, I roll up in there. I start doing some damage with my auto rifle. I start priming some enemies. I immediately follow up because I got some distance between my enemy and me with my heavy assault launcher, which is my best defense. That immediately does a combo effect, which of course does restore my health, but at the same time activates Catalytic Overdrive. I now push into the enemies that are all stunned around me after being comboed because of that AoE damage and start freezing them up with Voltaic. Upon freezing them, I jump in the air just a little bit and I smash, which then creates an explosion at the point of impact, which then serves as my next combo. But instead of this being just my next combo, this melee has now got a combo increase of 90%, which just then refreshes Catalytic Overdrive for me, of which I back up and follow up with some auto rifle damage from Rounder to prime up another target, to then follow up with my heavy assault launcher, which can heal me while simultaneously taking advantage of Catalytic Overdrive. Beautiful synergy all around, guys. You're just constantly knocking combos out left and right. The purpose of this, you want to draw aggro from enemies, simultaneously freeze them in place, constantly be getting combos out to buff your ultimates, as well as activating Catalytic Overdrive. We have multiple ways to prime enemies, as well as multiple ways to detonate. Now, the last component here, Ablative Shielding. This component heavily reinforces the Colossus armor and shields, and it states here a shield break increases damage resistance by 25% for 5 seconds. So Ablative Shielding works really well with Stalwart's badge, right? One increases ability damage by 40%, while the other one increases damage resistance by 25%. The point with those two components, guys, if you happen to get into a tight situation, your shield break gets knocked down, you can be both offensive and defensive at the same time. So guys, that is the Masterwork in-game Colossus right now. This is not the final build. I will say this all sounds gravy, But my Synchronized Frame, the component there that I really like, which increases our heavy assault launcher, is the only weak link. And that's simply because Voltaic Dome just doesn't do a lot of damage. Like, it does decent damage, but in like Grandmaster 2 and Grandmaster 3, just expect to be freezing enemies up. Don't expect to really be killing anything with Voltaic, which still serves a great purpose in keeping your teammates alive and keeping enemies in place. And as a Colossus, I would say that yes, you can reach some very good numbers in terms of damage, but our first duty as a THICC boy is to keep everyone on the squad alive. Now, I know somebody's going to ask me what the other weapon is that I'm using. That's actually Soothing Touch. I think I heard that there's some bugs with Soothing Touch, something about the recoil, but whatever the case, it's a marksman rifle. It hits hard with some slight kickback. It also comes with Striker's Balance, hits reduce recoil by 50%. Stacks to 3 for 5 seconds. The only reason why I'm really using this, guys, you see there the weapon damage, I get a plus 250% increase, which is massive. And as a Colossus, especially if you're using something like this, like Voltaic, you're freezing enemies up. You've got an enemy standing there frozen that you can just start pecking at their weak spots over and over again. So start finding weapons that actually like double up on those inscriptions. Something that increases weapon damage maybe twice. This one's pretty nasty because it increases both weapon damage by 250% and critical damage by 50%. Well, fellas, that is in-game Colossus build number 1. We're going to be doing a lot of these. And again, some of these builds are going to be constantly perfected over time. So be looking out for that. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.